What's up? What's up? It's
doing?
it's Big Villainous. This is TV Damage. One of the sometime members of Overthrow Media. Actually in town right now, so we decided to hop on together and chop it up about this. Little housekeeping before we start talking about the serious ass shit. So if this is the first Fraction Society, it's a little different than Dialectic. Basically what I do is I go over kind of some notes and talk about what we talk about, and I'll check in with y'all back and forth to check in with chat and have a conversation, but it'll be done in chunks. So yeah, I'm glad everybody showed up, and this is an important conversation we need to have. There's a lot of misinformation when we first started off, specifically, like for example, the media would misgender them, but then say they're a transgender person, so they imply both that it was a trans woman, which is not true, it's a trans man, but also to at the same time be transphobic, because it's not even bad enough that we're just dealing with some fuck shit again, another day in America. You know what I mean? Let's see, let me try to pull up. Oh, my Google Docs went away. All right, well, I gotta bring it back up. Oh, there it goes.
I guess.
Oh, sure. Oh no, I know where it is. I know why it went away. There's a whole other tab, so I can have it open at the same time. Boom. All right. So I'm sure everybody knows about what happened in Nashville, and the mass unaliving at the elementary school, Christian elementary school specifically. So the right wing is going buck wild with their crap, and so is the liberals, and not diving into deeper concepts that are really happening right now. And so they're not looking at the fact that most mass shooters are right wing. Of course, that's right wing will never acknowledge that, or are white. And those things are very important factors, especially inside America, and why those things are happening. But first, there's this thing that's happening right now where they're blaming. Literally trying to blame trans folks. They're trying to put that energy on there. You see, there's this cat who was on Fox. You remember watching Jonathan Gilliam? Yeah, and basically there's this freaking asshole vet, right? He's like, they're acting like he's an expert in some way, somehow. I'm like, how is this dude some type of expert? Because he's just some Navy SEAL dude. Like, he's not even have any understanding, and then he blames basically mass shootings on the existence of transgender people, which doesn't make sense, as most are cis white men doing that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's funny because we've seen this enough to be like, I used to serve. I'm a veteran and all that, but and we've seen plenty of people get trotted out by one news organization or another that they have no combat experience. They weren't trained for combat. They're and all of a sudden they're getting trotted onto these national TV networks to have their opinions be gospel law, as far as they should have done this, they shouldn't have done that. And then half the time they're usually spewing out crap like that.
Here's the thing that's even worse. He's not even talking about tactics of the police or something like that. He's not even critiquing that. Of course, he's Blue Lives Matter weirdo, but what he's doing is spreading transphobia instead, and trying to put mass shootings in general on the trans folks, which is wild. It's wild. What demographic does cis white men, cis right wing leaning men do these mass shootings? And so it's so ludicrous that they're trying to make this insinuation. In fact, the fact of a trans mass shooter is an anomaly. There is more cis women mass shooters than there is trans mass shooters. Comprehend, it's literally the least likely group, and they're trying to scapegoat this long history in America of this furthering of violence. And and it goes into the things now we're facing, I was about to talk about the upcoming blowback, but we're already full on the blowback now. We're in a blowback stage of how they're trying to scapegoat trans folks for this violence that's happening against children, while they're actually the demographic that's doing violence against trans children. You know what I mean? This is super wild. And then, like I said, then Fox brings on this random dude who has nothing to do with anything. He's just some Navy SEAL, so supposedly he's supposed to have an opinion on this. The clearly right wing leaning one at that. So Oh man, I don't know. That was kind of wild to me. Like, there might be some validity if it was about like the police response or something, which we just know the cops are cowards. Like, we know how they're gonna move, and it's surprising that they didn't just move like a coward this time. But like, also, I'm not really about to celebrate any type of situation they're doing either. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean, like, seen it time and time again with like police response. You know, they march around like they own the place, but they don't secure it. They don't establish that. You know, how many times have we seen it to where, you know, they can establish the perimeter, but they can't exactly, you know, bust in and take out the threat. You know, neutralize the.
that's self-preservation crap, right? Because
Yeah.
they even made laws to say that police don't have to protect people. Like, there's multiple laws and rulings that said that they don't even have to protect children. Not just Uvalde, but there's like, it's historical. It's like happened multiple times over and over again. So, you know, they're always, you know, we've clashed with the police multiple times. They're always self-preservation first, them first, and they're supposed to be protectors of society, right? Which is, bro, it's cap. That's not even real. And then I feel like we should you can let me let you go first before I go to the next part. I'm going too fast, but
Well, I mean, I don't really think I have much to add to other than it's funny because the more like I mean, I've had interactions with them where they'll outright tell you, yeah, we ain't protectors, we're here to protect property and businesses and do their bidding. And even then, it's just like they could tell that to the entire public, and you know, they still hold this vaunted position in society where they're supposed to be the protectors and the establishment of law and order. They're just state-funded, like, gangsters, basically. That's all they have. That's all they tend to be. That's all they ever are. That's all they've ever been. I mean, like, you know, I'm sure you've heard it before many times, going back to the days when they were slave catchers. And all we've done is just refine the process of slavery and refine the process of the plantation.
facts. I mean, and then the thing is, when it comes to like actually respond, I mean, not just the plantation, but like also you got the Pinkerton side of it too. So like just the state function, the corporate functions that they're here to protect. But when it comes to like, you know, the Shawnee versus Winnebago, if you guys look that up, that case, right? There's case laws that came from that made it where the police don't have to protect you. It said straight up, like, no, that's not the job of the state. And then it's like, at that point, what is the job of the state if that's not the job of the state, right? Like, okay, good. Now we know that the state has no job. Like, there's nothing that they do that is for the people or to protect the people. You know what I mean? Where the heck did that go? Okay, right, boom. Man, and that's a really important function, but also like to realize it's like to be the boot on top of the people's necks. You know what I mean? Specifically.
Or fund and protect the boot on people's necks.
Exactly. And now they're just, the thing is, trying to scapegoat trans folks is going towards like the active genocide. I'm gonna say it wrong, so the algorithm doesn't necessarily click it immediately. The active genocide that's happening right now. You know what I mean? I want to show you guys something. I'm trying to pull it up. It's hard to tell which is what right now. Look for, is it this one? Boom. Yes, that one. Have y'all heard of the 10 stages of genocide?
Oh, well, who was it? It was a Dr. Stanton, I believe, that came up with that.
So, hold up. And now it was like, this is a bad time, because I was just going to hip to this too. This is a bad time for this to happen, period, for trans folks, right? Because you know the right wingers are going to exploit it. See if I can zoom in on this a little bit.
Got the stochastic terror. You're going to have probably copycats. You're gonna watch humanity does what it does.
So currently, right now, we're right here when it comes to like specifically trans folks, the 7th stage of genocide. So persecution and extermination is next, right? And then when you talk about how they're using, the right-wing media is using specifically the tactics through the media to like push forward this, like to push a narrative around specifically trans folks being responsible somehow for the action of this spree shooter, right? Is literally trying to further that dynamic, trying to further towards a genocide. I mean, not even further toward genocide, further a genocide is actively happening. And yeah, so let me go over this with y'all real quick. So I'm not going to read all the examples. They have examples under it if you all want to read the examples, but I'm just going to go over the stages real fast. Check it. So stage 1, classification. Stage 2, symbolization. Stage 3, discrimination. Stage 4 is dehumanization. Stage 5 is organization. Stage 6 is polarization, which we that's where we see a lot of the media and the news and everything else trying to do that. Stage 7 is preparation, and this is when we start to see the politicians. We start to see the legislation going forward. That we're moving into stage 8, which is persecution, right? So as the legislation start to pass more and more, then that's more in the persecution stage. There's only one stage after that. I mean, there's only next stage is extermination after persecution, right? So we're bordering between stage 7 and stage 8 right now. And the scary thing and the blowback that we got to worry about specifically on the left is this is the furthering of this genocide. Like, and them using that to as a weapon of propaganda and indoctrination, to be able to ignore the fact that they're the ones harming the most children, not just because of the spree shootings, but also doing the legislation and attacks on trans children. And anything that had came up in this manifesto, right? Because we haven't seen the manifesto yet. The manifesto hasn't been like laid out for us to see and read and look over. But whatever comes with the manifesto is going to be used whatever way. So they're either hiding the manifesto because manifesto is all right, which is possible. I know it's a trans. I know they're trans, but it is very possible. Given a few stickers I saw on there being really suspect. Yeah. So years back, there was these stickers they put up all over like Capitol Hill and stuff like that were like some transphobic, racist, neo-Nazi stickers, right? But one of them were this skull and crossbone, and they were really cartoony. They're like cute cartoons, right? But they were like fascist cartoons. And one of the stickers on their guns looks just like one of those stickers, like a variation of it. And then they also had lightning bolts on it too, which is also a big red flag because 2 lightning bolts usually means SS. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure because the the thing is like I'm just going off of stickers I've seen before, look familiar. That one of the reasons the Nazis use those stickers is because it is familiar to people. It's very cartoony. It reminds you. They used to also use like another one that we were known for was like the Disney hand, like the Mickey Mouse hand, the glove. But not to go too deep into that. But one of those stickers looked really suspect. They looked like they could have been one of them. So,
imagine fascist Lisa Frank.
But this is not. I mean, well, I don't want to misgender them. They're due, so they're due. Clearly, like the trans still runs among men, and just because they were AFAB doesn't mean they're not a man. It doesn't mean they internalize a lot of the things. It is like very comes very much from masculinity, specifically right-wing masculinity. So I'm not gonna like act like that. I'm not gonna misgender them just because they killed a bunch of people. That's just not how. Because then it just harms other people for no reason. You know what I mean?
I was making a reference to a certain style of art.
Yeah, I'm not saying you were trying to say. I'm just trying to specify that just so it's not like.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be very clear.
So we don't play into what everyone else is doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to just be very clear and transparent. So if I'm over explaining, just understand that's why, because of what's going on. The thing is, like they're using this propaganda as a weapon. But if it is not all right, if it is from a perspective that is from the mindset of the oppressed and not from the mindset of the oppressor, right, still is blowback. It is still reaction to the actions of this society right now. So like either way, this like when the right wing tried to shove it off on trans folks, real and reality, there's a lot more complicated than that. You know what I mean? But of course, the right loves to simplify things that aren't simple. You know what I mean? And it's really, it can get really, really problematic. But like literally right now, we're like, it's a really bad time for this to happen, and it's also really serving the right wing's agenda for sure. But it always was. Anything that happens, even though the fact that this is like literally an anomaly that a trans person did this, and it's an anomaly when it isn't a cis white dude. Period. To be real with you, like it's an anomaly. Man, and I don't want to dismiss whatever trauma may have got that person there. Because you know there might have been a lot of grievances they had. Don't think people should just go around like killing kids, clearly, but unaliving kids. But damn, bro.
I don't think you can get any more cowardly than doing something like that.
Oh, man,
that doesn't get worse, really. But yeah.
But the thing is, we also can't we got to make sure to fight what the right wing is trying to do with this, right? Also, these liberals ain't much better though. I'll be real. We're gonna get to that. That's the next segment. But I want to get some of y'all chat first. And I'm gonna let you take it for a second. See before I get to the chat. See if anything you want to say that you haven't said already.
Oh, I pretty much covered it. But I was saying watch how society fumbles on this one, because that's going to be the main tell. That's going to be the main thing that will feed into the stochastic terror. Will feed into a replication of this fucking situation, even at a legislative level as well. I mean, we're gonna see the same shit over and over again, same thing, until the pattern gets broken. But I didn't really have much to add to that other than watch for the fucking twist.
Man. Twist. I mean, the twist is already clear with that Jonathan dude, with weirdo Shapiro over here platforming about for 45 minutes to try to push right wing propaganda, of course, transphobic propaganda, of course. I'm sure the Jordan Petersons are coming. I'm sure all these motherfuckers are coming in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? It's about to be here real quick, But let's hop into this chat real quick and see we're gonna. I want to act like people want to hear. Take a moment to dialogue with y'all. Starting at the top. So sorry, some of the chats are gonna be old, but we're gonna go through them. I'm really interested to hear what your take is, BP. I, for the most part, have avoided right-wing media takes on it. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely gonna do that. I'm gonna skip all of the love though. So the hell yes, I see you. I see everybody showing love. Started with it. I don't read it before I put it up, so I'm just trying to get to one where I make sure I read first. Feel like it's not just love. I feel like I feel like evangelicals, and I cannot say that word right now. I feel like evangelicals are just gonna use this as an excuse to claim persecution. Absolutely, that's literally one of the first things I thought about when it was a church. I'm like, yo, they're gonna be like, we on a victim complex. They're trying to kill Christians. It is the end days. It is you already know what they're about to say.
They're gonna beat them pulpits to shake out them scary dollars.
Man,
yeah.
Which let's be clear, the trans piece of this is ridiculous. Nothing about shooting has been connected to gender identity or remotely anything. Exactly. And that's what the crazy thing with the Jonathan dude, that fucking SEAL idiot, because he was saying all that shit, no evidence at all, just his speculation that has nothing to do with any it's like trans folks doing this type of stuff is an anomaly. It doesn't happen. This is one of those exceptions. This doesn't happen. Who does this? The people who are exploiting it right now. That's who usually does this type of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It just happens the person had him in the LinkedIn bio while being AFAB. That's it. That's innocuous detail is enough to apparently draw immense attention to. Exactly. And here's the thing is, as soon as it happened, I already knew. I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go, because they're so ludicrous. They're gonna like fuck bodies of evidence, right? And I'm not an academic. I do believe in like nuance and stuff like that. That is not just that the academics tend not to look at, but like, bro, that's the biggest leap. These right wingers just like, bro, like, how'd you get that? Because the body evidence says that assertion is ridiculous to put it on like, how do they call it? Transgenderism. Get out of here.
Whatever. Yeah, no, I remember when we actually found out about that. The police chief, he looked like that the words were just like, you know, he was disgusted with having to talk about it. It was a weird phenomenon because it's just like you got to put on your game face, and you know, I remember where he was like, the shooter was a woman. You know, how did he? I don't remember. How
yeah, exactly. He said it with so much vitriol.
Yeah,
like and the thing is, like, saying it with vitriol because it's a shooter. If he said shooter with vitriol or something, but he said like female, like in a specific way, I was like, bro, you really hate women. And then when I was like, then they said it was transgender. Like, oh, okay, that he's being transphobic. And then it was like, oh, he's layering it. He's intentionally misgendering the person to attack other trans people at the same time, trying to insinuate that it was a trans woman who did it. That is what this fool is doing. And at least that's what it looked like to me. And so I'm like, yo, this is wild. And that's one of the things when like it being a trans man, like, dog, they trying to make it sound like it was a trans woman. So it was like trying to put more hate on trans women at the same time, being able to get their goal of accomplishing misgendering people and trying to disrespect trans community as a whole. It was like some wild, low key stuff, right? But people like, you know, dog whistles and shit don't exist apparently. So you know, see, you know, but pretty sure long term they want to kill us. Exactly. I mean, it is definitely. That's why we said. That's why the 10 stages of genocide right now, because we're on 7 moving into 8 right now when it comes to trans folks. So it's definitely what they want to do, trying to find any reason to justify it. And this was unfortunately the thing that they were gonna. We knew they were gonna lash on. You know what I mean? So. Meanwhile, they're okay sending 18-year-olds to die in other countries, absolutely, or murder children in other countries, absolutely. That's no lie detected. What was your experience like since you were like a now disenchanted ex-vet? You know what I mean?
Oh, I was kind of disenchanted before I went in, but it was one of those things I had to experience it for myself to see, like, okay, all right, the bullshit is real. The bullshit is there. I mean, you can go into the argument of 18-year-olds. It's like, yeah, well, you have yet to develop, you know, your sense of the world around you, but physically you can bounce back from anything, and you're also supposedly at your peak during those years. Which, I mean, yeah, they get you in your 18, you know, your late teens and your early 20s, you know, throughout your 20s. Those are generally the years that, yeah, again, you're not socially developed. I think people refer to them as, well, I mean, I guess I can't exactly say that, but you know, you messed up 20s. And yeah, if they could hand you a weapon and send you to a foreign country and say, sweep it out for us, it's going to be easier for you to do that without the whole context, the whole social context of what you're doing. And also, like, they know they're attractive to people that are, you know, disenfranchised to a certain extent, to the whole, like, yeah, you know, they may have been bullied, picked on, or, you know, some sort of violent, it's something that they feel a violent retribution has to be made up to. And yeah, you know, what is the major difference between sending somebody with an intended purpose to go and, you know, slaughter children in a similar manner, as opposed to like it happening here in a civilian or domestic sense? I mean, the difference is the impact and implication, but results the same. You still gonna have stochastic terror being committed at these at these happenstances of shootings and so forth. That, you know, I mean, ask the majority of this country if they've you know, had to deal with something from a shooting. And I'd say either half of them are in denial or they never really had to get close to it in any way, shape, or form. And of course, you gotta weed out the hypochondriacs and the people that are like, well, this happened one time across town and it affected me. And it's like, yeah, that's not what I'm talking about.
I mean, it's interesting though to run it back a little bit when you mentioned the military and going into and have something to prove and all that stuff. It reminds me of the gun control debunk video I put out, right, and talking about how the correlation between military, the police culture, and the mass shooters' mindsets and the culture that they're thinking about is like super correlated. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm just hate to brag to everybody. It's not the guns. It's the society, and the society is highly armed too. So it makes it increase. But even if we weren't, we'd find ways to create guns. Believe that because of the country we live in.
Or dump the massive amounts of surplus firearms somewhere where
bro. But yeah. I'm talking about the liberals don't even get that the cops and the military put the guns in these streets too. They don't even understand that. Street niggas understand that, but these liberals don't get it. Like taking the guns and making gun laws ain't gonna help. We'll get into that a little bit. Gun laws ain't gonna help. They ain't gonna help. They're gonna help. It's gonna make things worse for marginalized people. But okay, I'm gonna go back to this chat real quick, and then because I appreciate all y'all being here. As a non-binary person, I find the notion touted by the right that I am somehow responsible for mass shootings just for being an MB just pisses me off. Like, hell, and it should. And it should, because they're literally scapegoating literally the mindsets that they perpetuate that cause these things onto people who are suffering from their mindsets. And they have no problem doing that. Scapegoating us for their behaviors and how outcomes. And like I said, even if the person isn't a right-winger, peep this though, the persecution they face added to pushing them to that limit. And it's called blowback. It's a military concept that all these people should understand since they want to be all proud of their military. Blowback is an actual thing. And so it's just like, but there's no way it isn't on the right wing. And they would be like, oh, left wing don't want to take responsibility, because it's not our mindsets that are causing these situations. It's not the thought process that put forward that create mass shooters that come from the left. They don't even come from the liberals. Liberals aren't even that bad. So like, let's just be, the liberals are bad in a different way, but not in that way. So like it is the right wing's fault, regardless, whether it's like blowback or whether it's literally that person is one of y'all. Because there are trans folks, just like anybody else, that are right wing. We can look at fucking what's her face, Blair White,
yeah,
right? And so it's not, because ideologies don't stop at who is privileged the most by those ideologies. Unfortunately, I wish they did. So, I mean, we're not going to find out until they release the manifesto, why, and all those things, and then we can evaluate that. But I think regardless, it does come from the right wing's reactionary tendencies that create these one way or another. And then it's fault. And the other person responsible for that is the person who did it. That's just how it works. So I'm getting a little passionate, but I think we all knew that would happen with this. Yeah, it's just awful all around. Agreed. And all these right-wing and liberal comments about adding more police, metal detectors, and arming teachers. Yeah, that's where we're gonna go with it every time. And everybody everybody reacts. The liberals with the gun control with more police, the right wing with more police, armed security, all knee-jerk reactions that don't actually think it all the way out. Instead, they just have this emotional reaction. And so they're really reactionary, by definition, you know what I mean? And it gets really frustrating, actually, fam.
Trying to get them a Department of Defense and Education all conglomerated into one.
Oh, did someone say that? Why not let private prisons run our schools? Did that really happen? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if someone said that. Did that really happen?
That's kind of the angle. It's either going to be, going to be ran like a military camp or like a prison. And it would probably be cheaper for them to transition to a prison model just because of the way this country's set up infrastructurally. I mean, I actually, I don't want to give too much of myself away, but I actually went to a school that used to be a county jail.
What school is that?
Mariner.
Damn.
Yeah, it used to, you could tell it was like the panopticon setup and everything. Like, but yeah, it used to be a prison, and then they transitioned to the Snohomish County Jail downtown instead.
I mean, it makes sense. I already built the schools like prison, so I guess it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All the like, if you like, if you go to a low security prison and you go to a school, they pretty much the same thing. Yeah, they pretty much the same thing. It's okay. So next comment. The only job of the state is to the state's only job is to perpetuate itself.
Well, it's got to do that through a lot of different processes.
Yeah, it seems like the solution the state wants is to make is just more violence. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the only thing that has is violence, right? Violence and bureaucracy. Violence and control of resources. But the control of resources is perpetuated by violence, so like that's fundamental. I feel real bad for the kids these days. Yeah, I mean, it's been bad for kids for a long ass time. Bad for kids for a long ass time. Jump down a little ways, y'all. Sorry if I hop into your comments that y'all really wanted to say. Might have to say it again. Hold up. Someone said something about the manifesto. I want to read this. The manifesto might say things like the reason they did it had nothing to do with transness, maybe even that they're not trans, and other things that would be politically inconvenient for the right. Absolutely. I mean, but here's the thing: is no matter which way it goes, if anybody with like that can analyze things will realize that it's gonna fall on the right, no matter what. Now the right might not realize that it falls on the right, and I think that's really what they're counting on. But anybody who can actually analyze nuance and analyze like repercussions and analyze blowback and understand the concepts like that, like, you know, that things have consequences, then they realize, like, no matter how it turns out, the right was intricately involved in this happening. So the way they throw in disinfo on the Uvalde shooter was them playing with the idea prior to this. Exactly. They try to say that person was trans when they were not. Big facts.
I also don't like the sheer amount of just absolute disinformation. And yeah, I guess we'll stick with the word disinformation because the other words probably don't play out as well on here. But yeah, I mean, the moment that the smoke was clearing, it was damage control and all these different elements button heads with it. I mean, like, if you remember the motherfucker that was looking at his phone, you know, like, I guess supposedly his wife was calling him. I think that was disproven because they supposedly took that guy off the line. Which, you know, I never did see the footage of that, and I've seen all sorts of footage around the Uvalde shooting, including, like, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the first bit of the most nastiest bit of disinformation about that particular shooting is the fact that it was supposedly the funeral home next door that were the first to engage the shooter and then failed to engage the shooters, even though it's like, okay, well, I saw this video. I saw heavily armored men with clear sidearms run up to that truck, and they didn't run back to the funeral home. No, they ran back to the school. And yeah, that's, first of all, like, that tells me right there that they weren't security for the funeral home as it was stated. No, that was school security. That was the SROs more than likely, and they could have stopped it right there. Like, dude crashes his truck into the ditch, and then he pops up and he opens fire at him, and they run away instead of just, you know, circling around him and, like, getting out of his field of fire so they could basically do a pincer move on him to where one of them could take him out before they took that. But they both ran away, you know, the self-preservation again that, you know, that they demonstrated. And that was the first bit of it. They were trying to say, like, oh no, that wasn't the school resource. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me, especially if you're going to allow, like, you know, especially when it comes to shooting children, which, yeah, man, like I said, you can't be any more cowardly than that. You can't get any more messed up than that. To like a certain degree. And yeah, you know, like, and then like, oh, he was getting a text from his wife. Oh, this, that. They damage control for the pigs is just ridiculous in this country.
Bro, they just cowards. We already know that, bro. Like, we know this personally. They be rattled of us.
Yeah.
Like, we, like, you know, you're not the type of motherfuckers on the planet, but they rattled of us. We've had conflicts with them because of just radical stuff, random court stuff that y'all have heard about with me getting tasered in court and the whole things going down. You know what I mean? Like, but they be rattled. And like, you see, like, when they're in danger, they run. So like the cops ain't really, they cowards, and they don't really like, and a lot of them are ex-military and they're still cowards because they're used to just having so much of overwhelming force they can leverage against people. They don't have to be brave. They don't have to be putting themselves in danger to protect anybody, not even children. And so they feel entitled to, like, not protect children, despite that's their job. The whole reason they're supposed to be paid, the whole justification for their existence. You know what I mean? Man.
Well, and even if they were, I guess you'd say socially held accountable, which, yeah, the Uvalde shooting's getting a lot more of that. Like, a lot more people refer to that as, the cowardly acts of the, Uvalde police and, their whole system there. Like, even if our politicians were supposedly going to bring that to light, to be like, don't ever, we'll come after you. We don't have an existing legal structure to go after them. Like, they are protected by the state, regardless of what they do.
Facts. And so about like what's going on with like literally around the transphobia and the genocide that's happening right now, folks were saying what kind of fight is even possible to put up. I'll probably most likely just be whoever can afford to get out of the country fleeing. And here's the thing, I gotta emphasize why liberals are a big problem is because the thing we should be doing next, the thing we should be focusing on trying to push forward is the, ability to be armed and build little militias for self-defense, which, we need to be utilizing. Instead of going for the liberals like gun control, we need to be able to defend our own communities because the police ain't gonna do it, and the right doesn't have no interest in doing it. The liberals don't have no interest in doing it. Only we can do it. You know what I mean? And I think, which is counterproductive to what the liberals want, and definitely counterproductive to what the right wants. So, I mean, they're both the right, really. They're both right-wing groups, but so yeah, it's just, yeah, man. I have to take let's see where we at. What chats? There's a bunch of chats. Okay, so we're gonna have to come back to some of these chats, because otherwise we're gonna be focused on chats the whole time. So if we miss y'all, we're sorry. Y'all got some fire comments. Let me see. I was looking for one specific response. So let's see if I catch those. Hop down the bottom, and I might skip some of y'all, but it's not because I don't love y'all. It's not. But it's because we gotta, get to the other pieces of it. Because I feel like we should jump into talking about the mobility of children specifically. The right wants to abolish public school and mass education. That was something that came up too as part of this. I'm like, I'll be real. I'm conflicted on that one. I think public school is kind of shit, but like I also think that if the right has it their way, people will just be completely uneducated and won't even know how to read. So, like, yes, I prefer that we have our own schools, but of course, you're not gonna give us funding for that. So,
I think that's a scream for crypto-fascism.
Yeah, they have their motives for real. Yeah. I just not. It's just where I feel conflicted about like the actual outcome of that though, because I feel like in some ways it'll be good, but they'll try to make sure that the people who need to be able to be self-educated the most don't have the ability to do that. So that's the problem with their solution. But so I feel conflicted in some ways. I don't want their answer though. That's for sure. The U.S. state exists to perpetuate the condition for owning class to stay owning. Exactly. And so they have no interest in like looking out for the people for shit. Oh, we got super chat. Thank you. Appreciate the love. But yeah, man. I think we should just hop over to the next part of the notes. So I think we're at the point we'll talk about the child mobility a little bit, and hold on. pull this up real quick. I had it. Another tab. Yeah, there we go. Keep messing it up. So we're trying to see y'all chat at the same time I see the notes. So one of the things that like the liberals have been doing now, I want to take some time to get in on these liberals. Liberals are not helping. Liberals never help. They always make it worse. They add to the benefit of the right and don't even know they're doing it. I think they're fighting the right because the right loves to be like guns, more guns, and masculinity, guns. Hey, I love guns. I want to sleep in bed with my guns and cuddle them. Like that's like the road the right does. It's ridiculous. It's childish. It's weird. It's but the left then has that, or not the left. Let's be real. They're not leftists. Libs, the left side of the right wing party, that is America. The left side of that, which is center right at best, is then like gun control. Now we turn away from the fact that gun control itself is a right-wing concept put out by the NRA itself. We can forget about that. We just ignore that fact. We can ignore that Ronald Reagan was the main pusher of it. We can ignore the fact that, well, we'll come back to the fact that it was used to disarm black people, and that was his intent, and that's what it's used, and to also justify slavery.
And Native people too. Yeah, they took their guns before they slaughtered them.
Facts. And we're not talking about like, I love how like all these people, the right love to use Nazi Germany as an example, right? But like TV Damage just pointed out, we don't have to go that far. We don't have to go that far at all. We go right here to this country and how they disarm people to then later slaughter them. And how the laws that were around that were made to do that. Hold on 1 second. We're gonna remove this real quick so our heads gonna get really big for a second. Boom. Big-headed motherfuckers thought you knew. I got a big head. Well, I mean, look, you can see how big my head is when he was next to Junza, because my head is huge. It's big. I got a big head. Not because I got an ego though, just because I got a big head. It's the truth. It's a truth, man. I'm not lying. My shit's like, you don't want to get headbutted by me. Put it that way.
Like getting hit by a wrecking ball.
It's like like by a fucking semi. Yeah, it's my forehead. You crazy? You in trouble? I can stop the screen share and then start the screen share. I'm getting better at this, but I'm still getting the boom. Okay, well, share. I'm not gonna bring it up yet though. Oh shit. So I don't know if y'all know. Do y'all know that the mortality rate for children are the most likely way for them to die is guns now? And which is like everybody's lovely ad for gun control at this point. But it's more complicated. It's way more complicated, of course. Yeah. And one of the things that they try to give an insinuation that, and I'm gonna be clear, mass shootings and spree shootings. All spree shootings are mass shootings, but most mass shootings are not spree shootings. So a spree shooting is like this. This is a spree shooting. A mass shooting just means multiple people are shot, which is very different because a lot of those things can be gang violence, which have a very different answer and response than when we talk about, spree shooters. Not only that, when we talk about gang violence, now this will be a little anecdotal because I didn't pull up the things, but I'm sure if I freaking find it, we'd find it's a fact. So I've been looking for this statistic for other videos and stuff, specifically. But when we talk about gang violence, most everybody who's involved in gang violence are children. That means the victim. That means the shooter. And one of the things they use that to justify gun control, right? And That is, I understand why that knee-jerk reaction feels really valid at first, but it's just way more complicated. One of the things that we really got to put focus on is like what's happening. So who is most likely, right? Well, is it the spree shooters or is it the kids in the hood? So this is Vice News. This isn't the best source. I like when it's trying to find it, but there's certain information people don't like talking about because it offers nuance that people, liberals and right wingers, don't like. You know what I mean? Both sides don't like it because it doesn't work in their favor. So I'm trying to find a spot, but specifically the people who are the most likely to be killed are children. Over 58% of them, I think it was. Not gonna read this whole article, but I'm gonna go slowly so y'all can peep it. And if you're watching it on a playback, you can pause anywhere and read the whole thing. 56% of them are black male, black teenagers specifically, right? And when we look at this statistic, right, this number, we got to take that in context, because when you talk about, and this wouldn't be anecdotal, I can't provide you evidence. I'm sorry, I can't, but I know this from experience. A lot of the guns in the streets when you're a young kid are guns that have not been legal in a long time. So they're not like, every once in a while someone will steal a new gun, every once in a while, but most of those things are things you haven't, or sometimes have never been able to buy in this country. Like I've seen multiple fucking Russian AKs, I've seen multiple Chinese AKs as a kid growing up like that, right? Those things aren't things that are just getting flooded from people's like houses. Those things are getting shipped in from somewhere. And one thing that people don't think about, because they don't want to think about how dirty the government is, as a lot of shit is released by the military and the police into the streets. But the things is, it's in the communities and neighborhoods that nobody gives a damn about. You know what I mean? But you love to use our lives and what happens as statistics. Not to mention, most of the violence coming between those kids are violence based out of necessity, violence based out of economics, having broken families where you snatch their pops up so they don't have a pops, their mom is working way too much, or their mom is addicted, or list goes on, right? Or they don't have a mom, or they're in foster care like I was, or also before I was in foster care, I had an abusive grandmother, so I was always dodging the person who was raising me. My mom gave me up as a kid, and I'm not the only one that has that story, right? That story is super common. And so say like increasing gun laws is supposed to help stop violence between these kids, that's cap. Because these kids who have the guns, one, aren't supposed to have the guns. Two, you just enslave the children as a response when you catch them with the freaking guns, right? And then you encourage other kids to tell on them, to help enslave them. And then when they get out, what you think is next? What do you think is going to happen after that? What do you think they're going to do to the person who told on them?
Yeah.
And so it's just creating more violence, and it isn't helpful because the laws are structured in a way to disarm people, individual people, disarm the consumer, disarm the kids, disarm whatever. But instead of just disarming them, what it does is enslaves them. It doesn't aim at the manufacturers. It's not trying to crack down on the manufacturers or the government or like the people who are in the government who are releasing these guns that we wouldn't normally be able to get to the streets in the first place. It affects them not at all. But who does it affect? Marginalized people, black folks, black boys, who usually a lot of us have been felons since we're 13, 14 years old, then catching gun charges on top of that, even when we get to the point in our lives where we're actually very safe to be around because we worked through our trauma and stuff, but because we have this record, we're still getting enslaved. And it does nothing doesn't change any of the violence. The violence in the street is still happening, whether people are felons or not. You feel me? And the spree shooters are still happening, whether you crack down on black people in urban cities or not. It doesn't change anything. All it does is harms people, and it furthers it. And not to mention, the NRA, the fucking gun manufacturers, also benefit off it. They profit off you doing that because then they can stir up their base, their consumer base. You're gonna take all the guns. Come buy a whole bunch more, so they don't take them all. And so the liberals like Cenk Uygur and all them be like causing more harm and thinking they're doing good. Like, look, theoretically, if we take these guns away and increase the laws and the felons and the background checks, we'll stop it. Overlooking the fact that most spree shooters have clean fucking records. Clean records. That's who's shooting up these schools. In fact, the argument would make more sense to say people that don't have felonies shouldn't have guns. Like, I mean, I know that sounds ludicrous. I know I'm being hyperbolic, but for real though, like if you were to use logic based off of what evidence you actually have, you would see for stopping spree shooters, it's not the felons, it's not people that are mentally ill that you got to watch out for. It's your neighbor, bro. It's your normal kid neighbor. He might be the one to blast you. That's the normal kid that you never thought would do it, or might be a little bit weird, maybe. But it's not necessarily even that. The one common denominator is they're usually really privileged, which explains a lot of the entitlement, in my opinion. But yeah, let me let you jump in because I've just been going off. I'm just getting my bag about this sometimes. So
I think the only thing that I wanted to add what you were saying was, there's a narrative that's all like transcend the ghetto, transcend your background and all that. That's not transcendence. That's fracturing. That's what's the word I'm looking for? Ostracization. Because you have to walk, because a lot of that's like, well, how do we stop the violence? You can stop the violence in the war zone by, you could either move the war zone, you can get rid of it, what have you. First of all, anything that's going to make any material change is going to take a while to manifest. And in the meantime, you want people to walk away from the backgrounds that they come from. And it's just like, that's how you fracture their societies. That's how you fracture societies. Like they try to do it by taking the men out of the home, with, I want to go look at Pruitt-Igoe and how that, evolved into, if you're a man with a job, you shouldn't be able to stay here. But lots of jobs that they were getting, couldn't afford to move out of the housing projects.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't afford to move their family out of the housing project specifically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then if they had a job, then the mom couldn't get like services, so then they would separate the family because the only way that the dad is trying to take care of them. Or actually, no. If you did, if you didn't have a job, then you couldn't be there because you don't have a job. So either way, it's just pushing the dads apart. You know what I mean? So it encouraged like single. I mean, that's what you're referring to, right? That specifically thing like back in the 60s and 70s, and it like destroyed a lot of Black communities, which also added to this, but also the economic disparities, the fact that we get jobs and they take it away from us because we start demanding wages that we deserve, and then like for example, we can use Detroit where all the auto companies move the fuck out because Black people are like, no, you're not gonna abuse us anymore. You're gonna pay us what we owe. You're gonna have conditions inside these factories where we're not losing limbs left and right. We're not gonna put up with that. Look, if you guys haven't read it, read Detroit, I Do Mind Dying. It's a really good book. But and so like we take that example, what they do, they pull out, and so they cause a vacuum when we see this condition that Detroit's in now. Not only is the water effed up, not only is the land effed up, but economically they have utterly suffered because all the jobs left. And so what do people have to do but like turn to crime to be able to survive? And now the problem with crime is because if you are like doing crimes, for example, to get money, you can't turn to a civil suit or somebody to help you get resources when someone steals from you or tries to con you or whatever to get ahead themselves. And so then it increases violence. Not to mention when you're talking about young folks, their brains aren't fully developed. And so they definitely put them in adult situations that adults should have a hard time handling. And then guess what happens? Violence increases. You know what I mean? As well as people like we're talking about like youth that have tons of trauma, you know what I mean, because of the society they live in, because of the communities they live in. Not that the communities are bad, but the fact that we're robbed of resources and can barely get by, put people in survival mode, and that perpetuates trauma. And so that's most of these shootings we're talking about is coming from communities like I grew up in, you know what I mean, and then they have no context whatsoever. So the liberals are like, take all the guns away, felon background checks, while at the same time claiming that they care about the prison industrial complex and how it abuses communities, marginalized communities, which is cap, because no, you don't, because you will perpetuate that because it makes you feel better. Some people who are least impacted making these decisions for us, thanks very much. We appreciate that. We know we don't have it. Fuck our agency. You know what I mean? And then we got the conservatives on our end it's because y'all are black and bad. Like the fuck? No, bro, fucking cap. And so that's what we deal with when we talk about like, and especially this child gun mortality, because 58% of films, sorry, 56% of it is literally black boys from the inner city. Literally, of the homicides, 56% of them. And it's not gun, like cracking down and throwing them into slavery more isn't going to help stop that violence. It hasn't. We had the super predator bill. You see how that worked out. It doesn't help. It just makes things worse. And even if you were to lock every little black boy up, guess what? You just put the violence inside the prisons instead. You know what I mean? And you don't have to look at it now. You don't have to look at it. You ain't helping shit. Because prisons are super violent. Prisons are more violent than the streets. I'm just saying. There ain't no gun in prison. And there ain't no guns in prison.
Mm-hmm. You also never hear about it.
Yeah. You don't
assume it.
Yeah, people know. People know because they hear the stories. When you get out, you hear the stories of what happens up in there. Man, and then the age of youth, like I said, they're between 13 and 18, 30 to 21 at worst. We've been on this because that's like 1 in 21 black boys, that whole statistic, not making it to C21, that whole statistic, right? And then we see economics getting worse, and we see how this falls on the community, how it just leaves the community lacking, and then they use these statistics to justify their agendas. So we got the liberals over here, and we got conservatives over here, both exploiting this. The conservatives exploiting it against trans folks, exploiting it for the bigotry, and then the liberals exploiting it against marginalized folks and black folks, but saying it's about gun control. Despite the fact that if you really want to go after gun control in a real way, if you want to fight the gun epidemic in a real way, you go after the goddamn manufacturers. And like I said, I'm not somebody who fetishizes guns. I don't believe in disarmament because we're under a fascist society right now. But yeah.
No, and what I want to add to that is you can go after the manufacturers, or, you could also hold the people that buy these weapons accountable as well. I don't know how much that would change because, we haven't seen too much of it, but we've seen like quite a few shooters that it's like, oh, mom and dad handed this shit to me. And okay, well, mom and dad was supposed to hold on to that for you, if anything. And that's, only if you absolutely needed it. That, there's laws that are basically like they're trying to go after people who provide, shooters weapons and so forth, laws like that. I don't know how well,
but that's still individuals. It's not the corporations. That's not the mass manufacturing. That's one of the things that happen when people are already at the bottom, or maybe not. Maybe even if they're not at the bottom, they're still like in there having to work for their money, so they're utilizing shit like the black market. So that's still not hitting who you need to be hitting. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's also where they're starting at. That's the baby steps they're taking to stem a freaking pandemic, I guess.
I mean, allegedly.
Yeah.
But they know it's not going to work. That's what I'm saying. It's just not going to work. That's not how that functions. You're just going to knock a couple smaller people who, they're just trying to make a couple extra bucks. And can they be problematic? Yeah. Can gun runners be problematic? Yeah. But a gun runner is somebody who at least started from a marginalized background and worked their way through. And that's why I started 90% of the freaking time if they're a gun runner. And a gun runner isn't necessarily a person who even is an individual selling individual guns. They're like going and buying guns and trafficking them other places. But all right, let's get some of the chat. Spitting facts over here, my guy. So solidarity. I appreciate you. Let's go up a little bit. I want to go up to so I'm gonna go up to this fire. Let me see, maybe up here. We'll start with the frog up here. Well, and gun distribution, manufacturing, trading, etc., is pervasive and interconnected. That any meaningful legislation would need to be an international effort. Fair enough.
I'm curious to look at how that one would play out personally, because I'm thinking like, seems like we already have a lock on the international trade. It's the interstate trade that tends to sidestep anything that's as far as like gun-free zones or whatever. Or
I mean, I don't know if we got a lot of international trade, or like not into the
yeah.
U.S. Maybe not into the U.S. at least.
Yeah,
because 95% of them crates don't get checked.
yeah.
Like they could literally sneak a nuke in here, bro. Literally, and set it off from one of them crates.
If that happens though, you know damn well somebody's gonna get called out. Like, who let the nuke out?
But no, they only check 5% of the crates that come in this country.
Yeah,
5%, and so like 95% of them are unchecked, right? And that's probably where the AKs have came in, because I've seen like a few AKs, bro. Like AK-40 fully automatics. You know what I mean? I've seen multiple fully automatic fucking shit that you can't buy. There's nowhere you can buy them from.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but that's what my father did. And for all I know, all the shootings that happen in Texas, Louisiana, you probably attribute to my fucking pops. Man, I mean, shit.
And that's what I'm saying. None of that's affected by gun control.
No, nope.
But none of that being trafficked is affected by gun control. None of these old guns being passed around for like generations, you know what I mean, is affected by gun control. Like there's guns out here that when they finally get snatched, they have like a 25 year long thing. There's something called throwaways. So I don't know if any of y'all know what a throwaway is, but a throwaway is a gun that's been used to take someone's life. And so people either sell for super cheap or they literally just throw it away. Well, there's throwaways that have 15, 20 bodies on them over like a 25-year period. You know what I mean? And they've just been passed around. So the idea that we're actually doing anything to stop these guns from like getting in the streets and causing the violence is just ludicrous to me. I'm like, bro, y'all haven't been in the streets if you don't understand like how this shit actually works. It's not necessarily these new guns people are buying. And like the thing is, like there's more than enough illegal guns in the streets for every single criminal to have 5 of them. I'm telling you, there's a lot of illegal guns that are actively illegal right now. That like without gun restrictions would be actively illegal right now. without any gun restriction, but like without like felon firearm shit. Like be actively, if anybody had that gun, even if it's a vet, would be going to jail. You know what I mean? Maybe not a vet. Vets can have guns that we can't. You know what I mean? Because you guys can have automatics and shit.
Well, it's easier for us to get the license for it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, we people who aren't vets can't get a license for it. So I wish I could give me my rights back. I want my A12, please. Okay, so I want to just comment. Like literally, it would have to be a global commitment to eliminate gun violence itself. Well, see, the thing is, I don't think the problem, what I'd say, isn't gun violence. The problem is colonial violence. The problem is violence of desperation. The problem is things that like, because like for example, people talk about England and gun control and blah blah blah. You know how much knife crime is there? It's berserk. Knife crime is berserk in there. Knife crime is here too, but like it takes up, right, as well as acid takes like that. It's not about that, because there's mad violence in like some of the most restricted places too. It's just not gun violence. And that's why I always love to say gun violence, because people are getting shot, but they're getting stabbed and hit with acid and stuff. And it's not. I guess it probably has a slightly lower murder rate because of that. But like, I don't know. But the murder rate difference, I'd argue, is mainly a difference based off our freaking culture. Like, bro, I don't know. Like, there's not too many cultures where it wasn't grew up that it was cool to kill people. Understand that. As a child, we grew up with cool people. Not just as in the hood people. Square dudes be thinking that shit. Square dudes. Not just hood motherfuckers, but like, Hitman was always cool. When we think about like Hitman, do people think like, oh, they're evil, or do they think they're cool? Let's be real about it. Because most time people can think they're cool. There's the people who say they're bad people are the minority. Well, they might say they're bad people, but they're bad people in a cool way. You see what I'm saying? And so we have this fetishize about taking people's life. And it's not even just guns, it's just taking people's lives. And I think that's a part of it. Plus, the foundation to this country is the mindset of murder and genocide. And so it's like a rite of passage damn near.
And you said you hit it right on the head with that word fetishization. Fetishizing. Because you could romanticize all that, but when you actually, most people, when they actually meet or come face to face with the reality of somebody, you know, that's going to either kill them over nothing or what have you, or that, you know, the whole idea of killing is like their whole thing. They tend to change. They tend to react differently. They tend to, you know, they tend to feel the chill in the air all of a sudden. They tend to act, they can sense that somebody's a danger to them all of a sudden. But, you know, you can, a lot of those people romanticize. I mean, I remember this one porn star I knew I lived with, and, you know, she was just all like, oh, you were in the military? Did you kill somebody? And it's just like, why the hell would I tell you about that? Why would we talk about that? Is, you know, and it wasn't like in context of, oh, did you further the advancement of freedom or nothing? No, it was simply oh, did you kill somebody? Yeah, it's humanity has a weird fucking has a weird relationship with that.
I mean, I won't even just say humanity, man.
Yeah.
I'd say specifically the U.S., man.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of many cultures. Oh, although
what was those chants you guys had in the military? But like blood makes the grass grow or some shit.
Oh yeah, red blood makes the green grass grow.
Oh yeah,
that one. Yep. Yeah. Oh, if you ever want to see cheerleader chants and the ideation of like war being fetishized to where it could be like palatable, join the military. Like, especially if you join the Army or the Marine Corps, some, you know, shooter outfit like that, where it's like, okay, first thing we're going to teach you to do is you know, basic level killing people, basic level engaging in war and skirmishes and firefights and what have you. Which then, you know, if you join the Marine Corps, that's specifically, you know, going to be your mission, you know, your base mission. They say every Marine is a 0300. It's an infantryman. So yeah. Yeah, but yeah, you get to hear all that propaganda. I mean, how many times have you just heard me yell "Cal" out of nowhere? That comes from that. That comes from that. They used to make us yell that all the time. Yeah. Woo, going back.
I remember it wasn't even you that told me. It was Adam, the first one that told me about that. About the blood. I was like, "Are you serious?" It's like, yeah. They sing about killing. Like, God damn. I was like,
what? No. Oh man. Oh God. And yeah, as far as desensitizing you to fucking child murder, bro, we had a chant about napalm sticking to kids, throw them a candy and then fire an M60 at them, stuff like that. Yeah, it's
bro. I know about that one. That's wild.
Think about the most twisted cheerleaders that you could create, and a lot of that is like, yeah, basic training and all that.
Bro, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you specifically, but I'm saying what we're talking about right now. This is what I'm talking about. This is what creates the violent culture we live in. It isn't the freaking guns, it's the mindset. And the gun is just another tool we use. Because it's not going to be a gun, it's going to be a bomb, it's going to be a knife, it's going to be some acid, it's going to be a car. Man. And it's because of the America's a war nation. It is a war nation.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we live with such freedoms, or at least such privileges, as I like to think of them, and yet still we tolerate factions of people that'll outright ostracize and, you know, other people, you know, pretty much for war to be the end, the means of that justification, to start a war with those people, to supposedly eliminate them. And yeah, why do we need this? And, you know, most of what it boils down to is like you said, gun manufacturers, a lot of corporate interests that are aimed towards war, aimed towards wartime bucks, wartime bonds, and stuff like that. It was something that I'm not exactly well versed on like who actually started this, but I remember World War II was like the one. This country made it a gigantic social like institution as far as war goes. It's like, well, you know, you got the people that go over to World War II. All of our industry went to war.
I mean, that's the only production we got.
Yeah,
war products and war itself. The only production we really got in this country. And so it's like fundamental. And then we wonder why all this violence happens. Like, bro, that's why. Like, if you build a nation based off war, based off killing, based off genocide, then violence is going to happen. That means inside your borders too. You know what I mean? Especially when you talk about the people who are supposed to be people inheriting it, they're gonna internalize it the most as far as like just a random killing stuff. Because even when you talk about in the hood, people ain't randomly killing, they ain't killing for no reason. That only happens when they come from the suburbs, bro. People ain't really doing that like that. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say they're anomalies, but like if you see a hood cat killing on random, you know that's weird. But if you see a upper middle class person spree shooting, you know that's normal. Like if they killing somebody, that's a good chance of what they doing. And like this time in America, let's be real about it. And so it isn't about the guns, because even when we come to gun violence, it isn't what they want to insinuate it to be, but it's because of this culture. And especially people who are inheriting this culture are going to internalize that, and they're going to find, like, especially masculine folks, masculinity that way, because masculine folks are the ones that are indoctrinated to be the military, indoctrinated to be the police, indoctrinated to be the killers. Literally, to be the killers. And because military, killer. Police, killer. Like, you know what I mean? That's what we're indoctrinated. The idea of being a warrior is a killer. And I don't think all of that, like as someone who's martial arts, someone who's like fucks with the warrior passive, I don't think it's all just negative. But when we talk about America, that's the only way they've ever used that. And then we will see the people internalize it, and that's what happens, man.
You'll see a lot of if we do end up going the right path on this, you're gonna see a lot of subsummation, cultural subsummation around war and violence and all that. Which, I mean, like people would argue, well, we already got football and things like that. It's like, that's kind of there. That's also another big corporate, circle jerk. But yeah, what you said reminded me of something that I personally experienced. It was a trip thinking about it. Because yeah, like I've hung around a lot of hood cats, I've hung around a lot of suburbanites. I go through the whole gamut of people that I can. Only in the more affluent white areas in Seattle, like, first of all, I lost friends in 2 mass shootings in Seattle. The Capitol Hill massacre, which that was just right wing stochastic terror coming in and basically going like, well, I don't like your free loving raver lifestyle, so I'm just gonna murder you random ravers at this house. Which, yeah, I lost my friends Sushi and Shannon to those.
And then Cafe Racer, right?
Yeah, Cafe Racer is exactly what I'm thinking about, because that I met both those shooters. The Capitol Hill cat, well, I'm not gonna say any of their names because fuck them, but and yeah, I wish I'd have got the chance to stop them. But like I'm pretty sure lots of people who met him did. But the Cafe Racer shooting was one that hit me because I was at a party with that guy and he killed his friends. He went for the easiest target he could. He said as much to me that he would rather, attack random people than do nothing. And I let them, and this is another one of those where, you can argue whether red flag laws work or not. I don't know. I don't know if they would have stopped this, but what happened was they tried to take him to Nova, right? They tried to take him to Nova and have him commit himself, because he was just so miserable and angry, and his wife couldn't make him feel better, and he kept expressing his desire to shoot people, and he had 245s, and yeah, because they were like, after that, like I talked to them, they were like, okay, we definitely went and followed up after you told us, because I'm like, yeah, this guy didn't come from some hard background. He didn't come from any real strife as far as I could tell. I mean, people could correct me on that, but realistically, this guy had it made, and he still went and did what he fucking did. And yeah. And that is like it goes back to that point. It's like you don't see these shootings in the hood, like random people being attacked. That's all part of the plan, you could say. No, these random shootings, some of them, it's just like it's the blowback from society. It's the blowback from this, that, or the other. But entitlement was a big one, because he wanted the government to change so bad to stop hurting people, and I'm gonna hurt people to make my plans. Is like, get out.
I mean, like, and here's the thing is like, hurt who? Like the thing is like, you didn't hurt the people who you even mad at. Like, that was wild. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing too, when it comes to the laws, the gun laws and stuff, right? There's another example why this doesn't work. Dylan Roof had a gun because of gun laws. Specifically, his friends took the gun away from him. Took the gun away from his black friends, ironically. Why? Took the gun away from him. But because they were scared of law enforcement and they were felons, they gave it back to him. If it wasn't for the fact of those laws, they would have kept that gun away from him and he would have never done that shooting. And I don't know if that's happened in other situations or if that was an anomaly in itself, but we gotta comprehend that, right? And I'm not saying that like, oh, we should just let anybody like whatever. I mean, like I'm saying we should let anybody, but I'm not saying we should have consequences, precautions. I mean, there's other things that can be done, but the way we do it is making it worse. And it isn't using logic, you know what I mean? It isn't using a logic based off of what we're seeing actually happen. They're basing off like in knee-jerk reactions. We can't have knee-jerk reactions to serious things. We got to really think it out. You know what I mean? Look, if I thought this was a good idea, I was sitting and thinking about it, because I didn't think about it. Even if I didn't like it, I'd be like, all right. But it's not. And I can see how it's not. Not just because of my own interest, but because I see how it doesn't work. I see the flaw. I think there's a lot of this thing of like people thinking about these laws as in the best case scenario, which we never get anywhere close to within sort of fictional society. Like it in idea, in theory, this would be great, but it's not how pans out. It's just not. Anyways, we should get back to the chat because I feel like we're supposed to be on right now. We haven't got to the next piece. Okay, so Frog the Anarchist says that's the only type of gun controlled. That's the only type of meaningful gun control that would accomplish anything. And by the time you accomplish that, you've essentially stripped all the enforcement power of government and capitalism.
When I saw your comments earlier, Frog, I figured that's where you were going. You were going with like a global movement to establish peace. And because that's the logical conclusion. It'll never happen. We're dealing with, and this goes right back to that right-wing stochastic terror. Like a big part of like their cucuys or whatever is globalization, is a global movement.
You gotta be careful with that word now, because the right wing has co-opted that word so bad.
Oh yeah, very yeah. I mean, it's a dirty word coming from them, and I guess you would have. I don't know if that would work with a limited version of that, or something like that. But I figured that's what you were going for earlier. Was if the whole country, if the whole world could get together, band together and all that. I would hope it wouldn't take a what was it, the Watchmen style ending, just the gigantic big thing for humanity to come together and drop their differences for that to happen. I mean that's what it'll take for capitalism. Yeah,
but probably, that isn't humanity. That's why humanity is to have a word that starts with the R, ends with the sound ocean. But hey, and you can't do that Arvushin without harms. Let's be real. The American prison system is abhorrent. Just slavery under a PC name. Plus, it's not like it is hard to make a gun. That is facts. Like literally, you can 3D print guns at this point. They've been able to 3D print not only just guns, plastic guns. Understand? Plastic guns. Honestly, the best rhetoric move I can think of is to point out gun control legislation isn't gun control. Facts. I mean, it isn't. It's not controlling any guns. It's not about the guns. It's like controlling people, marginalized people. Because real gun control would result in stripping all of the meaningful enforcement power of every institution of power. Exactly. So the legislation that gets proposed isn't really gun control. It's control of ownership. Facts.
Oh yeah.
Dropping bombs right now. I see you. And just rewriting who gets to have power. Exactly. I'm saying exactly too much now. Hot take of the year: slavery doesn't solve mass murder.
Never did.
That's facts after facts after facts. I appreciate you, Frog, for that. You're dropping bombs right there. That's all facts, right? And the fact that people even try to insinuate that is just wild to me. I'm like, yo, y'all realize what you're doing, right? You're not stopping firearms from reaching people. You're just enslaving people for having them like individual people that are just living their lives. You know what I mean? And everybody's like, well, if they shoot somebody, they did a crime that isn't fucking just having a gun. The actual act of shooting, if they were to use an arrow, it'd still be a crime. You know what I'm saying? They use a bow and arrow, it'd still be a crime. It'd still be like attempted murder. So we just like, yeah, you know what I mean? But that's facts. You know what I mean? It's not really, you know, if they were really real gun control, would take the police guns away first.
Facts. I mean, I was recently found a relative of mine. A distant relative, like a distant timeline. We're talking 100 years ago. They still had police running around with automatic weapons in their cars in Oregon. I'll go that far to say it. And my ancestor took them out for right reasons, wrong reasons.
For dinner.
Yeah.
To go out for dinner.
Yeah, for dinner, I guess. You can say that. But yeah.
Long pig.
But yeah, the thing of it is like this coincided with legislation they were working on, to where it's like, yeah, since back then 100 years ago, legislation to basically, you know, keep the police nice and heavily armed, and keep everybody else, keep police, military, and, you know, any government or federal official heavily armed, whereas everybody else can, you know, you can have your 2-shot, you can have your little Derringer pistol, I guess. I mean, it's not that drastic, but, you know, when you limit firearm capacity, when you limit firearm power, I'm currently in Washington, there's legislation to just take rifles away from people that aren't designed for hunting or whatever. And I can guarantee you that you're going to get probably a slight increase in police shootings, or police, you know, murder of innocent people and so forth. I mean, I don't know if it did this year, but we finally had a point where the police overtook criminals and how much they basically just took from people in money and assets. I do know that happened. I do know that.
Is that illegally or legally? Because legally, I bet you they've been overtook that forever.
Probably.
Civil forfeiture takes so much money from people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look that up. I don't know if they included the illegal seizures, because I'm pretty sure that was legal seizures, and that's just like,
I feel like that's been overtaking it though.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's still there, but I do know that bellwether has been passed.
I mean, unless you're counting corporate theft, then corporate theft takes more than anybody. But okay, so let's get back to comments real quick. So then we'll get to the next piece of the conversation. Yet they are almost always encouraged and enabled by an adults. It's not like guns are cheap.
Nope.
Or maybe I'm just crazy poor. So a lot of people in the streets, when we talk about youth in the streets, they hustling. And they're actually getting the gun usually to protect that money and their own safety. So yeah, a lot of them don't have enough resources in the first place. So again, resources would solve this, because if they weren't hustling, they wouldn't have nearly as much interest in a gun just to be a buck. But because people are hustling and they don't want to get robbed, they don't want to get shot themselves, they carry a gun. And the idea that the liberals like to say guns never protect people is statistically no, that's not true. It's just that most people who are actually protected by guns are people on high risk stuff. So you're either one, not going to hear about it in some statistics, they're not telling anybody about it, or two, they go to jail even when it's self-defense because they have a record. Like, so I know a lot of people who use guns to protect their safety because I grew up in the hood. And it works. I've known people use it as a deterrent, and it works. But the people who are going to need to use it aren't the people who are going to go submit their experiences to statistics, bruh. Like, this is not going to be what happens, because for them, because of the gun laws, specifically, that's a very dangerous proposition to do, which probably means you being multiple years in prison. So, like, they're like, oh, you don't have the statistics to back it up. Of course I don't, because I can't have statistics on that, because I have to take those statistics somehow. And nobody's going to, like, openly tell that. They might tell me as an individual, or I might have seen it as an individual, but if I was to tell you what I saw and, like, see they go, yeah, this person by name did this, or well, this thing happened to this person, I'm reporting crimes at that point. You know what I mean? Like, because even though they're self-defend themselves, the crime happened against them is a crime, and because they're a felon, them having the gun is a crime in the first place. So you can't really keep statistics on that. But I don't know, man. And the thing is, like I said, most people who are living in those type of realities are criminals. Not because they are committing crimes like that, but because they're criminals because they're a criminalized community, and the only way to get resources sometimes is become illegal, specifically so they can still cage and marginalize that community. So, like, I don't know. The crime is a result of the situation, not the other way around. So yeah, if that makes sense to people. But okay, what do I think about vigilante groups like New Era Detroit? Vigilantes, well, if you're crime fighting, I'm not with you. I don't like vigilantes. I like community defense groups, but not vigilantes. So when you're talking about like things that would be qualified as militias, I fuck with that. Like, but if you're talking about like people who go on like, we're gonna go fight crime, bro, you're not helping it. If you want to, you know what really does a good job though? You know, guys ever heard of the interrupters? The interrupters are people from the community who go and these people who have put in work, who have done their dirt in their time and realize the damage that it caused. So they go and they interrupt conflicts before they can escalate. That is way more effective than any type of gun control. Way more. But do they put money into that? No. Because they're trying to stop crime and violence? No. What they're trying to do? Incarcerate people. That's what the intent is. That's what intent of gun control is. That's all it is.
I saw a video with an off-duty Chicago PD who did an interruption, but then flexed on the person that they isolated and shot him. So yeah, it does work, but you got to have the pure intent behind it, which it seems to me like those who would, yeah, it's one of those things that definitely should be implemented, but definitely should be implemented correctly. Because if it's implemented incorrectly, you're gonna leave it to some bully to do it. They're gonna get the same results. But yeah, I do believe, interruption pattern. Like I used to do this stuff. Pattern, like interrupt the pattern. Don't allow. Don't allow either society to dictate that this is what you must do, that you must subjugate yourself to it to improve it or to prove yourself. No, you like most people are good enough on their own. Like they don't need to prove nothing. And yeah, the interrupters definitely helped with that. Understood that at a very intrinsic level.
So we jumped down a little way just because we're a little behind. We want to get to more of the conversation because y'all been dropping fire that we had to engage with. So I'm sorry if I skipped y'all, but doing what I can. We only got so much time in a lifetime. You know what I mean? But in New Jersey, I can only legally have 10 rounds max in a magazine I can purchase. Bro, like I'm not saying you pass a law like that, I'm just gonna have 30 magazines. You know what I mean? Like, bro, like, and here's the thing is like, I get the logic behind that, but again, it comes flawed in my opinion. But I'm not really gonna die over that. I'm not gonna like die on that hill on like how many rounds you can have in a rifle or gun. Besides the stance of our evolution that we need, and that I will. But what I will say is that that's it just it could hurt some people. You know what I mean? If they're in a bad situation, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's just backwards hustling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to like gun laws are just backwards hustling. They're not gonna help.
It's funny how many people I hear about bragging. Oh, you need that many shots, man. You deserve what comes to you. It's like that is a defeatist mentality. If you're in a situation where you need more than 10 rounds, I hope you got something that more than 10 rounds. But you could argue most people don't ever have to deal with that. But I mean, again, you are limiting yourself to certain experiences. And like I said, most of the time, maybe you won't have to deal with it. But you're ever in that situation where you only have 10 rounds and all of a sudden you got like a whole squad of people after you. Well, shit. I don't care how accurate you are. If they're motivated enough, and they know you're out. But again, rare situation.
But so New Era Detroit said that their goal is to protect Black women, children, and elderly. They're currently looking for someone that essayed an 80-year-old woman. And look, the person who did that should get what's coming to him. But again, I don't believe in prisoner complex or vigilantes. I think this is pretty right-wing concept. I believe in community defense, right? So they're similar, but they're not the same, right? Vigilante is about the hunting them down, whereas community defense is about prevention. And then if you get away with some shit, you might get tracked the fuck down too. But the fundamental first thing is to protect people in the first place. Is to push people away, not push people away, but to divert that violence, to be able to be something standing in the way of that violence happening in the first place. You know what I mean? Something, that barrier to that being able to be accomplishable and people feeling safe to perpetrate against people. And I think that's why community defense is way different than like a vigilante group. Like we got vigilantes in Seattle that was like the ops, bro. Fuck Phoenix Jones, bro. Ops, straight ops. You know what I mean?
I just don't want the violence to happen. It already happened.
Yeah, man. He trying to protect fucking courthouses and shit. Yeah. And then, not to mention, he was selling drugs on the side. Benjamin Fader. Yeah, we know who you are. Everybody knows who you are, Benji. You got outed. The police outed you, fool. But Benji was selling. When I was bouncing, he'd actually come to my club and get people to come back to the party where he'd sell them drugs at his party. You know what I mean? So this dude was and I'm not telling, this is all here. I got busted for all this. I'm not saying anything that isn't known. So I'm not gonna, don't ever say that. If they haven't already been busted, never say that shit. If they haven't already pled out, if they're ever going to trial, never mention that. But it's already done. The case is over with. So yeah, that fool was a hypocrite, because he also went and arrested one of our homies for selling weed and told his camera the dude was selling heroin. Mm-hmm. When Drew, he arrested Drew, said Drew was selling heroin. Drew from the Ave.
Yeah.
Like, that dude does not sell hard drugs. He's a weed dealer. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. But anyway, long story short, F vigilantes. Vigilantes are chumps. I do not F with no vigilantes. I'll be real with you. I hate them dudes.
Funny, because I knew one of those cats and he ended up ripping them off. They ended up ripping each other off. They ended up tearing each other up.
Yeah, man. And the thing is, I know not everybody's Phoenix Jones, but just vigilantes in general are just not great. Community defense all day long. Consequence for actions all day long. But I'm not gonna get down with the vigilante hunt people down, be a bounty hunter thing. Boba Fett is cool in Star Wars, but you know what I mean. I only know Boba Fett in real life, man. No real life Boba Fett's out here, man. I'm not with it. I'll be real with you. Oh shit! What you about to say? I felt like you were about to say something. Ooh.
Oh no, I was about to probably plagiarize MC Chris or rip him off on that Boba the Fett song you got.
Oh shit. Okay, we are talking about the stickers. Dang, I already went into some of the other parts already. So we talked about ideological. We talked about a lot of this already. All right, dang.
Kind of like we're wound in circles a little bit too. I'm trying to figure out what we haven't covered as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I mentioned is like Manifest Destiny as an example, but that pretty much was still a part of the culture of American violence and like why people cling to that and find their manhood or find legitimacy in that violence. And here's the thing: is like, I'll be very clear. I'm not anti-violence, but it's a difference from just like being oppressive and not just oppressive, but just cold-blooded murder, right? Like, you know what I mean? And that's what happened. And that's why I'm never gonna be a fan of mass shootings. Not even as a tactic against the ops. You know what I mean? Like it's just not how or spree shooting, put it that way. It's a better way to put it. Mass shooting, spree shooting gets conflated and they're not the same. They're just not. I mean, a spree shooting is a mass shooting, but mass shootings aren't necessarily spree shootings. You know what I mean? And they like different answers for different problems. They might look the same to people who are kind of being simple about it, but if we're not being simple about it, if we just like look, let's see the nuances that exist, then we'll see that like no, it's not the guns itself, not the same thing. So like we talked about like why gun control is made. You know what I mean? Damn, we actually might have hit all this already. We'll just act like I might hit a lot of these stuff that I have in my notes accidentally. I'm just realizing because just I just go off sometimes in my bag. But
now I'm looking at that. Something that came up earlier I never did. It was I think it was related to the whole global movement to stop curb violence or what have you. Because it wasn't even in this country. It was another country where I don't want to say India or whatever. Like I'm not certain, but everybody got together to ban their firearms. They actually threw their firearms away into the river, and then upon realizing what a bad idea that was, I want to say the next day they went and recovered them and found out that they'd already been taken. People already went and got back their firearms, or they got their firearms stolen by people that were like, oh, really? You gonna give this up? Okay. And that's not even in this country. That was somewhere else. But yeah, that was related to the topic that we were talking about earlier. So I don't know how much helps to bring that up.
That's good.
Yeah, and then what was it? False flag theory. That was what he was coming up with. Like, but yeah, I find that to be easy to debunk because you can propagandize people to a point where they will do things automatically on their own volition, especially in an individualist culture like this one. Because, one person standing against the rising tide of whatever it is they believe against, yeah, that is something that our culture does like to encourage, even if it is to encourage it for consumerism. Yeah, so for that to be a coordinated false flag, it's not likely, and it doesn't need to be necessary for that, unfortunately.
Yeah, facts. I mean, so before we get this will be for our next topic. We're gonna circle back to this what's up there right now, but we're gonna talk about like what TV damages brought up, right? So like yeah, let's address that a little bit more. Like, we know about Alex Jones. We know about Alex Jones being like Sandy Hook was faked and all that stuff. Look, false flags are real things. False flag spree shootings are not. What motive? What would they gain? Because the only thing I've heard is Alex Jones talking about to get gun control in. I'm like, bro, that's not, no. Yeah. They don't even need to do that for that. Like, if systematically they wanted complete gun control, the conservatives will just concede because they're not an opposition like they convince us they are. They just want us in opposition with each other, and they want to lead us into that opposing each other and not looking at the nuances, not holding them accountable, which will also get into the gun industry immunity and how that the lack of accountability speaks to that. But yeah. So I mean, let me pull up the notes more so you can like hit on the points you had brought up. So no, you put these specifically in the notes. So I want to make sure you have everything you ooh, oh man. Okay. Yeah. Boom. Okay, here. Oh, get that out the way so you can see your notes. Oh shoot.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah. I think I already hit on all that though.
The argument of the human condition versus argument of nature. I was kind of interested about that because you were saying that, and we're talking about last night, and I wanted to see what I don't know if I agree with you on it or not, but I wanted to like we can have that dialogue if you want.
Yeah, okay, yeah. My main thing I was getting at with that was you could go with the proponents of gun control arguing that it's human nature to want to kill each other or whatever, and to find the easiest method to do so. And I don't know how universal that is or how much of a major point that is.
But I mean,
that's a spectrum, like you said.
The interesting thing with that to me is that like that undermines their own argument, right? So like that actually works more towards the liberals' argument. It's kind of ironic to think that conservatives use that, because if that is human nature, then the argument for gun control seems way more valid because it's not systematic. It's not all these other things that create the actual infrastructure of violence. It is just our nature to be violent. And so, but then also the flaw to that is the same thing flaw with authoritarianism. When people say like people are inherently violent and not trustworthy, so let's put a few of them in charge. Like what? Mm-hmm. Like if we're untrustworthy and violent and selfish, we should spread that out as much as possible because the contradicting interests will balance it. The contradicting interests will balance themselves out of that. But if we are selfish, not trustworthy people that have a hierarchy, sets us up for absolute failure. Just saying, like, but and what was the argument of conditions that you were saying versus conditions being like the opposite opposing view?
Oh yeah, and I was one initially to be like I felt like debunking that human nature argument altogether because we've seen humans, increase prosperity in certain situations. And even if you look at statistics as they exist right now, your more prosperous humans that are living, in paradise, I guess you could say, they're not the ones necessarily out committing mass murders and so forth. That stuff's too good for them. You could even argue that I don't
know. I'd argue differently because all of them what's the economic situations for all these pre-shooters? From Columbine to this person to the people before that. I mean, what are their economic background? Let's say they are a lot of people that are really fluffy lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do wonder how that plays the world over because I do know that Anders Breivik or whatever guy who did a mass shooting in Norway. I don't remember if he was well off or not. I know he had Nazi ideologies and stuff like that, which motivated him to do what he did. But as far as the human condition goes, I don't know if it's an easy thing to conflate the human condition around addiction with, a predilection towards spree shootings or what have you. But I do know, like, human conditions do, they do tend to work. Like, not universally, like you said. You're going to get your friend, you're going to get your fringe cases here and there that even like I said earlier with the fucking dude I interacted with, it's just like you might be well off but you'll still do it. But the thing of it is my argument for human condition is improve everything for everybody that you can.
So you're saying like if you improve human conditions then we'll have different outcomes?
Yeah,
I agree.
Like, is it 100% effective? The evidence would point to no, but the evidence would also point to you're less likely to have to deal, like, tragedies will be actual tragedies.
Yeah, I mean, I think for like a lot of the I think for a lot of non-spree shooter things, that's the absolute answer. I think with spree shooters is different, right? Because spree shooters, they tend to be privileged, right? So I feel like that's the colonial, that's like literally decolonization is what's needed, right?
Yeah.
So like in a whole revamp of values. It's not as much about the guns, it's about the values, right? If we're valuing war, we're valuing violent men that take by force, and like, you know, and kill lots of people to get what they want, then that's what people are going to see as the goal they should accomplish, and that they haven't been enough of that is why they should use that as a weapon. And I think that's part of the problem. I do want to jump over here to this last part before we get out of here, though, about the gun industry immunity. So one thing I talk about that I really noticed, and now I'm not saying liberals don't oppose this as well, right? But this immunity that called the PLCAA, basically made it so people could not sue to hold the gun industry liable for things that happen indirectly because of them. So like, you know, if they didn't, the gun industry would literally have to do the crime themselves to be held accountable, right? And so when we talk about gun legislation, right, and we talk about how gun legislation should be used or whatever, the fact of that people don't put more energy into like, one, repealing this, and two, holding like the people, if you're worried about guns flooding the streets, holding the people who do that, who manufacture those guns accountable, is backwards hustling, right? You're, again, persecuting the oppressed and letting the wealthy and the powerful who benefit from it go. Because I'm not gonna say they don't benefit from it, because they do benefit from it. They benefit from every way they can make a sale, right? More violence means more people buy guns for self-defense. More threats of restriction from liberals on guns means more of the right-wingers go and buy guns and make sure their guns don't get taken from them. You know what I mean? And all that shit. And so it just inflates gun sales, you know what I mean? And these people benefit directly from it, right? And instead we targeted marginalized communities and people with felonies who have already been targeted over and over again to then incarcerate and enslave. And that's how we advocate gun control. People don't want to dive into the history of it. People don't want to talk about how gun control was created as we know it by Ronald Reagan and by right-wing parties to disenfranchise black folks, specifically the fucking Panthers. People don't want to look at that. People don't want to look at that. People don't want to look at how if you want to attack guns, you've got to go to the root, not to the leaves that are there, not to the individuals just trying to live their lives. You don't go to them to try to attack them to fight against guns. You go against the fucking industry. But no. You'd rather just make more background checks and more things that really don't tell you anything. A background check, someone having a felony doesn't say they should or shouldn't have a gun at all. Someone that has mental health issues doesn't tell you if they should or shouldn't have a gun at all. And if you think that you do, you are naive. You have not been paying attention. You know what I mean? And so it gets, you know, but one thing we can agree on is these fools here are benefiting from it. And you ain't never gonna see me protect that corporation. Even though I want to have a gun, even though I want to have an AA-12, a fully automatic shotgun, I'm never going to protect the corporations making these weapons of war, because I do think we'd be a better world without all this shit. But it's too late. It is too late to be without it. You know what I mean? And if we say that it's taken away from the most oppressed people, most marginalized people, then what we leave, the people of power fully armed and continuing to oppress. And it's not conducive. It's not conducive. And then on the other end, clearly leaving the liberals alone from it. Then we got the conservatives on our hand who are fully armed up and trying to advocate a freaking genocide against trans folks and using this as an example. So like, you're saying disarm now? You want to disarm people now? Because we know they're not going to get disarmed. The right wing never gets disarmed. The alt-right never gets disarmed. Because it's who this country expected to have guns in the first place. Is the people that this country could utilize as fucking crash test dummies to go do right-wing, alt-right shit. They're never going to disarm those people. They're only going to disarm the people that are marginalized. I promise you, they will disarm trans folks first before they'll disarm these alt-right wingers. They're doing the mass majority of these shootings. I promise you. And the more you push gun control, the more that'll be a reality. There'll be trans people who lose more rights. people that are black people lose more rights, but the white colonizer, violent people will keep their hands on the gun and not lose a single freaking right.
Yeah. And the statistics bear this out. But yeah, what were you saying about I was going to ask you as far as like going after gun manufacturers and so forth. Trying to remember if they did this with tobacco manufacturers. I was thinking your proposal sounds to me like anytime we have to deal with a mass shooting perpetuated by somebody who legally obtained a firearm, were you saying like we should legally go after that whole, the whole process that got them that firearm?
I'm saying the corporations that make profits off it, if anything, like I'm not really saying I'm advocating it, but if there is going to be it, that should be it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to fight for them. Sure, I'm going to fight y'all about the gun control as it is now, but I won't fight y'all about going after these corporations that are like profiting off our deaths. They're profiting off of supplying the world weapons. I'm never going to fight you on that.
Yeah,
because they are the ops, bro, and they only want to cause harm. They don't want to arm us to be able to liberate ourselves. So I'll never fight you on that, because at the end, they're just war profiteers. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not saying I suggest it, but I wouldn't oppose it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, man, I suggest our evolution. You know what I mean? Yeah. our evolution. Yep. You get what I'm saying? Put that together and you'll get, that's what I advocate. But the thing is, like, but then to target the most marginalized people is just ludicrous. It is ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous, and it just hurts people, and that's what the janks of the world, that's what the anti-Kasparians of the world. Shit, I know some of y'all love them, but that's what the Hassans of the world be on. You know what I mean? And I think Hassan has a little more nuanced takes too, but he has some bad ones too. He has some really bad ones. You know what I mean? And and then we got the right wingers that want to be fully armed and blame trans people. This is what we're dealing with, and really what we need is, like, as a working class, as a proletariat and proletariat, is we need solidarity from black ex-cons and black folks in general, all the way to trans folks to fight all of this shit. That's what we need. I mean, at least that's in the people's hands. But I don't think we're there yet. But we need to get there fast. Fast.
Yeah, because the problem's gonna grow.
Facts. All right. Well, I think we're gonna end out with the next chats. We're gonna go through y'all chats, chop it up with you for a little bit longer, and then we're gonna probably pull this to an end. You know what I mean? We've been going a good little 2 hours, so yeah.
Yeah. I still wanted to bring up because even continuing on so you prove malfeasance through whoever delivers the gun to the mass shooter, and they pay it out. I think that'll eventually, if that ever does become a thing, it's like I believe a frog of anarchy or whatever mentioned earlier. That could become a global thing. That could very well become a global thing, and who knows? Maybe that will curb the overall violence that the humanity actually is subjected to. I mean, that's again that needs to be, a lot of these ideas need to be implemented fast, because the way I see it, it's an escalating problem.
Yeah, I think the discussion of violence, the discussion of guns need to be separate. I think, I think when we talk about guns, it's just one thing. And, we address how people use the discussion of violence in one way, whatever. Yes. But I think the idea that we're going to exterminate violence from our societies and from species is ludicrous. That's a hard one. But the massive amount of genocidal violence we see right now is also ludicrous and should never happen. Because I think violence is always going to be a part of living. It is. But it doesn't mean genocide. It doesn't mean imperial power structures will have to be that, because there are a level of violence that nothing is used to. Yeah. Right? Their level of violence is wild. But violence itself is I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. It's a neutral force. It is what it is. And I don't think there's getting rid of it. It's part of the life. It just is. It's been part of life before we existed. It'll be part of life after we're gone as a species. You know what I mean? So, but I think that's his own conversation. I want to have the conversation at some point. Feel free to leave in the comment section after we end this. Not in the chat, but in the comment section, if y'all want to hear that conversation at some point. So I'll make sure to do it, because I think the conversation of violence needs to be had. but a lot of people aren't ready for it because a lot of people are triggered, and validly, violence can cause trauma. It's valid. I mean, I've been through a lot, so I know. But I think the conversation is kind of not where it needs to be. But then none of these conversations are. I think our conversations in America are like in the worst situation possible. I think everywhere else has better solutions. Even if I don't agree with all of them, better solutions than we do in this nation. This nation is like bad idea central.
Yeah, I like the Swiss model. Everybody can have an automatic weapon. You just better have a place to store it, like a secure way to secure it. Otherwise, yeah, they take it from you. But you could have it otherwise.
Okay.
You are also accountable for anything that happens with the firearm that you are assigned to. Nope. Cannot put the cat back in the bag. You could actually put a literal cat back in the bag much easier than what you're referring to.
Man, you could shove the curses back in Pandora's box easier than what they're talking about. I mean, and also it's a better idea than what they're talking than putting the gun cat back in the box. That's not a good idea. The state is not our friend, all right? It is not. We live in a fascist nation. That's not our friend. Yeah, no bashful, you got it down. Don't be worried about generalizing the right, pretty homogenous. Okay. We were talking about, I just realized.
It's like how the Simpsons predict everything. It's like, well, it's easy to predict people who won't change.
Okay, so let's see. Can't put it back on bus. Too late for nukes too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the whole thing on nukes. That was interesting. I mean, nukes are complicated, right? Because everybody thinks every nuke's a tactical nuke too, which is also its own thing. And nukes aren't great. Nuclear weapons are not a great thing. But they're not all world ending. I will inform you all that. There's things called non-tactical, which are low yield, and it's just, not as horrible as we think it is. But still, the fact that Russia and the U.S. have so many tactical nukes isn't a good look for humanity. So yeah.
And yeah, I'm curious as to how that plays on the world stage, but I think the only advantage that the U.S. has in the whole nuke game is we fire them from submarines.
When we have a global network of self-sustaining empathy-based intercommunities, I will gladly join in on the bonfire of weapons of destruction.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very, very wonderful. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a great. I would say fantasy. Who knows? Maybe one day, but yeah, I don't see that necessarily as a reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. But that'd be cool. But that ain't happening until we get a just world. If we can get rid of giant militaries, I'd settle for that. Like,
but yeah,
if we could get rid of like these giant infrastructure imperialist projects, I mean, that'd be cool.
maybe 100 years from now, because I think that's a wonderful thing that could happen that we probably won't be alive to see. But if it happens, it's a good thing.
A mental health bill combating gun control will classify gender dysphoria as a mental illness, and legally they would be able to take guns away from the trans people 100%. Yeah, I mean, we need to like fight that law that exists right now that says people with mental illnesses can't have guns. That is cap. That's bullshit. You know what I mean? It's BS. And again, that's part of the felons with the firearm and those things are part of the same law. We're literally there to disarm the Panthers because they've been able to stigmatize black folks with mental illness for a long time, as well as felonies. So that's why that shit sits there in the first place. You know what I mean? Self-harm is a worry for sure, but that's because of the state of society. That's because we don't have communities and support networks. And And that's the one thing where the most valid point people have when they have gun critiques. But the thing is, the problem again still isn't the gun. It's our society. It's our communities. It's the fact lack of love and empathy and support networks for people. That's really why people self-delete so much. But yeah. Let's see, a couple more before we get out of here. Let's see. I ain't read this one yet. So, what do you think about the Charleston White? And would you ever do a video about him? I am working on it. Okay, it's coming. I promise you. I know I've heard a couple people say that. I got you. I have the thumbnail already. I just need to write the script and stuff like that. Charleston White is a snake, piece of shit. I could say that. Yeah, piece of shit, and a rapist. Openly admitted to multiple times and multiple lives, as well as he's pro snitching. He's very pro snitching. He's all about it. He's very anti-black. You know what I mean? So yeah, we will get in. We can go in. He's a traitor. He's a traitor.
He sounds exactly like what the system wants to create.
He's a traitor rapist.
Fascist system. Yeah.
He's a traitor and a rapist.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Two things known by. Like, it's not just really told he's a traitor, because I feel like people can break weak or whatever. Or maybe he didn't even tell. He advocates telling. It makes him a traitor. Mind you, that part of his thing is saying, I can rape women and commit crimes because if I get caught, I'll just tell on somebody. He's literally said that multiple times. You know what I mean? And I do believe in people breaking weak and then redeeming themselves. I believe in all that. But the reality is he is not that mother flower. You know what I mean? He's a horrible person. He's a horrible, horrible person. Solidarity among the marginalized and accomplices are absolutely necessary. Oh, shoot. Y'all trying to keep with y'all chat trying to keep me around, huh? I hope you all have easy days that leave yourselves as comfortable as you can be with the knowledge at hand.
You got to do that. You're going to lose your mind if you don't.
I advocate for complete nuclear weapon disarmament. Okay. I'm not arguing that. I don't trust anybody to do it right now, but I would agree. Yeah. I feel like capital owners want to nuke the planet and hide their bunkers to reset the world's Fallout style. In my opinion, I don't think they want to do that. It's because it undercut them too much, but they might end up doing that.
Yeah, try to leave the planet too.
Chuck all nukes into space. I think the nukes should go to space. I think that's actually a really good use of them. I think because thermal nuclear radiation isn't jack shit in space. You know what I mean? Like, we get hit way more radiation from the sun every fucking day, right? And then we could use it to like redirect like asteroids if they're ever gonna hit the planet, and that'd be kind of cool. But instead, we kill each other with them because we're crazy, we're wild. We don't lie to each other with them.
Turn them into like energy sources as well.
I can see no use for a revolution to have or use nuclear weapons. I wasn't arguing that. If you thought I was arguing that, I was talking about other firearms. So I was talking about firearms, not nuclears.
Everybody has nukes. We got a doomsday clock that's eventually going to tick down.
Dr. Anarchy, they're weapons. Yeah, okay, boom. Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna correct this real quick. That's not exactly true. And not saying this is not me advocating nukes by any means, but that's not exactly true. That's why I talk about the difference between non-tacticals and tacticals. A non-tactical is a lot more localized and small, and way more controllable than a non-tactical. A non-tactical is way more controllable than a tactical. Sorry, said it backwards. And I think it's important to know this because we need to understand the language they're speaking about, especially when we talk about like Russia and the conflict with Russia and stuff like that. We got to understand what exactly they're talking about when they talk about nukes, because Russia was ready to drop nukes. They were trying to drop non-tacticals, and those they drop and they have a very small explosion radius and radiation radius, so they do small amounts of damage, and the radiation actually depletes very quickly. But yeah, I mean, it's just complicated. I am consider myself one of the students of war, so I kind of understand this stuff. Jenna probably got me beat because they were actually in the. Oh, well, sorry. Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't name. My bad. TV damage was in the military.
Yeah.
Y'all forget that name. Y'all didn't hear that name. I just out their legal name or their real name.
Yeah. My name is
TV damage.
Yeah.
Truly eliminate giant militaries 100%. Good start. Oh shoot! All right. I'm actually gonna take a couple more randomly, and then I'm gonna be out of here. I'm shopping for a concealable weapon. I ain't getting a no license. I don't want them to know I have it. Okay, don't say that. Well, I'm sorry, but don't say that. I'm fucking live, bro. You know it. Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't you think unity between gangs in Los Angeles and a revolution against the LAPD is possible? I feel like it's hard. Anything's possible. I feel like it's hard. I feel like that was the root of the feds striking beef between us and the Black Panthers and getting Bunchy Carter killed, because that's what that was headed. So, yeah. And if you know who Bunchy Carter is, he was the head of the Black Panthers in LA and worked very closely with Huey P. Newton and the Oakland Black Panthers. Check them out. Okay. Let's see. I want to pick people I haven't. I guess everybody had picked before, so everybody's gonna get one more. All right, and then we're gonna get out of here. Once the nukes are dismantled, use the fissile materials. What? Fissile. Okay.
Nuclear fission.
Oh,
so fissile.
Okay, fissile. Okay, fissile materials for electricity, and once it just waits. Send
it into the sun.
Yes, I mean, I think having like a reverse Star Wars program, or like, so it's not aimed at. I mean, so it's not or no, a Star Wars program that makes sure it's not aimed at Earth is not the worst idea. Like, there's some asteroids out there that could just do us, and I think having some deterrence possible is not a bad idea for that. But you know. Unironically, I forget it since I didn't hear it clearly. All right. Let's see. Two more. Let's go. Two more of them. Good point, BP. We also tend to make threats of nukes about us rather than the people being threatened. Understanding they can be localized helps us be more victim focused.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of the dude that I should have dropped because he was wanting to. He was like, well, if there should be a nuke dropped anywhere in America, it should be in Seattle or whatever. Well, that's where I'm from.
Don't nuke my city. Yeah. Don't nuke my city. I grew up there, man. I love my city.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like I guess his whole reason was that's where all the left wing fringes live or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, right. It's a city. It's full of all sorts of people.
Our main power issue is large corporations and infrastructure based on cars rather than people. Boom. Facts. Yeah.
Fossil fuels.
Okay. Yeah. We got it. All right. So that's it, y'all. We hit them, and if we didn't get your chats, well, sorry, it's time to go though. But I appreciate all y'all being there and rocking with us. Please share this video. Please leave a comment. I feel like there's multiple conversations within this video that definitely need to be talked about. So hopefully we can get this to go kind of a little bit viral, at least the replay. You know what I mean? But yeah, I love y'all. I love the revolutionary energy we had in here and the good dialogue. I hope this was beneficial to y'all. I hope that we were able to like talk about some things that gave a little insight, gave y'all a little bit to think about, and also might give whether it's agreeing with us or against us, give you better arguments to have this discussion towards an edifying way, not just toward the vain way. You know what I mean? So yeah.
No fetishization, no sensationalism, just even rational discussion.
Well, yeah, I mean, even rational discussion, but also in ways that can elevate it instead of just repeating the same echo chamber BS. You know what I mean? But all right, we out of here. We love y'all. Y'all are dope. Deuces. And you know it's gonna be like an ending thing, so I'm gonna do my little dance because I always start saying goodbye before.